Hello everyone. This story follows Lytuky, an ordinary girl suddenly caught in a deadly chase when her dark past tied to her biological parents is revealed. Protected by police officer Henry, they face countless dangers, from thrilling pursuits to life-or-death battles. Throughout their journey, a genuine love blossoms between them, becoming a warm flame amid life's storms. Will love and justice overcome the looming darkness? Stay tuned for this gripping and emotional tale. Lytuky never imagined her peaceful life could shatter in an instant, and it all began with an old letter left behind by her adoptive mother after she passed away. Lytuky had always lived a quiet life in the city. By day, she worked at a small art gallery. By night, she returned to her cozy apartment, painting quietly while her white cat napped by the window. Her world revolved around colors, light, canvases, and a handful of familiar faces. Among them was one person who stood out, Henry, a police officer who had occasionally assisted the gallery during investigations involving stolen or forged artwork. He would drop by sometimes, fix the gallery's security camera, or chat briefly over coffee. They weren't exactly close, but there was always an odd sense of familiarity between them, like two people meant to cross paths. Then the past came crashing in. Inside an old canvas her adoptive mother had left her, Lytuky found a letter hidden beneath the frame. What it revealed turned her world upside down. She was not her mother's biological daughter. She had been found as a child, abandoned by a river, wounded, and wrapped in a silk cloth bearing a strange insignia. Her real parents were once key witnesses in a top-secret criminal case that had rocked the underworld nearly 20 years ago. The man behind the darkness was known only as the General, a ruthless crime lord with power, influence, and blood on his hands. Lytuky was stunned. She couldn't fathom how she fit into a story soaked in violence and betrayal. But reality didn't wait for her to adjust. Within 24 hours, her apartment was broken into. Her documents were gone. Her phone glitched with anonymous calls. A black car parked outside her building for hours. Terrified, she reached out to the only person she instinctively trusted, Henry. He didn't ask questions. "Stay where you are. Don't hang up. I'm coming," he said. When Henry arrived, he wasn't the calm, gentle man she knew from the gallery. His eyes were sharp, alert, those of a trained officer ready for war. He pulled her out of the building just minutes before an explosion engulfed the place in flames. It was no accident. It was a warning. From that moment, her life changed completely. She became the target of a relentless manhunt, orchestrated by a faceless enemy who always seemed one step ahead. Henry became her only protector, moving her between safe houses, forest hideouts, and back-alley contacts while uncovering fragments of a past long buried in blood and secrets. Lytuky was no longer just a quiet girl with a paintbrush. She had become a threat, a missing piece of a decades-old puzzle, one the General wanted erased forever. Henry understood that. But he also knew one more thing: he would not let her die, no matter the cost. From the moment the apartment exploded behind them, Lytuky knew she could never return to her old life. Everything was gone: her past, her safety, and the colorful world she once painted every day. Now, there was only one path ahead: run to survive. Henry led her out of the city that night without a long explanation. They changed cars 3 times, winding through countless hidden routes until they stopped at an abandoned house deep in the outskirts, a place he called a temporary refuge. "Do you prepare places like this for every mission?" she asked, curling up by the small fire. Henry didn't answer immediately. He glanced at her and said softly, "Not every mission can be prepared for. But people like you need more than a plan." At first, there was a gulf between them. He was a police officer familiar with guns, danger, and rules. She was a girl who had never faced anything beyond canvases and colors. Yet this very contrast forced them to depend on one another. Henry was the only one who could protect Lytuky. And Lytuky, though fragile and lost, made Henry feel he couldn't just do his duty. During those days in hiding, Henry witnessed her restless sleep, the blank looks when she thought of her adoptive mother, and her clumsy efforts to learn how to use a radio or disassemble a stun gun for self-defense. She didn't cry. But in her eyes, whenever she stared into the dark night, there was a well of unshed tears. She never asked much about her biological parents. But Henry knew every silence of hers was a scream from a broken heart. Henry, who had faced hundreds of cases and criminals, had never felt his heart waver like this. Not from fear, but from a feeling growing inside him, something he had buried for years as a cop: love. Once, when Lytuky was nearly spotted at a gas station, Henry rushed in and knocked out 2 strangers without hesitation. After escaping, she sat gasping by the roadside, and he stood silently, staring at her for a long moment. "Did you do that because it was your duty?" she asked, voice trembling. Henry replied softly, not meeting her eyes, "Not always because of duty." From that moment, words were unnecessary between them. A glance, a hurried hand squeeze, or a brush on the shoulder as they moved through dark woods was enough to convey warmth. Amid the pursuit and shadows, their feelings ignited like a small flame, fragile but enduring, enough to warm 2 souls lost in the storm. But Henry knew they couldn't hide forever. Their enemy never stopped chasing. Every moment of hesitation brought them closer to death. He vowed to protect her. No longer for duty, but because his heart had chosen. The life in hiding couldn't last forever. Lytuky and Henry knew this better than anyone. After weeks of constant moving and changing locations, they finally faced the harsh truth: their enemy had narrowed down their position. One rainy afternoon, while they were taking refuge in a small wooden house deep in the forest, Henry's phone rang repeatedly. His eyes grew more serious than ever as he listened to the news from his colleagues. He knows this place. We can't delay any longer. Lytuky looked at Henry with a mix of fear and trust. She never imagined she would have to stand in the middle of such a dangerous battle, and so close to a strong man like Henry, who had become not only her bodyguard but also a solid emotional pillar. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice small but determined. Henry took a deep breath and replied, "We fight. This time, not to run away, but to end everything." In the days that followed, Henry and Lytuky began to carefully plan their confrontation with the general, the man behind all of her suffering. They gathered information, seeking clues from survivors and those connected to the crime syndicate. Each day, they understood more about their enemy, a man not only ruthless but extremely intelligent, always one step ahead. Alongside their strategy were quiet moments when Lytuky and Henry cherished precious silences. Standing watch at night, their eyes would meet without words, conveying worry and longing. During late-night talks, when the gunfire outside quieted, they shared stories of their past, unfulfilled dreams, and new hopes just beginning to bloom. Lytuky gradually realized that her feelings for Henry were no longer just gratitude or appreciation. It was love, a deep, sweet love, painful because danger constantly lurked nearby. Henry couldn't hide the gentle look in his eyes whenever he gazed at her. His determination in words and actions was his way of protecting not only her life but also her heart. One night, as they sheltered in a small house atop a hill, rain pouring outside, Henry gently took Lytuky's hand. "I know you're scared, but I'm scared of losing you too," he confessed in a hoarse voice. Lytuky choked back tears. "Me too. But if you weren't here with me, I don't know if I could go on." Amid the falling rain and enveloping darkness, the two fragile souls found comfort in each other, a love in the storm, becoming the strength that kept them standing. But the truth could not be hidden forever. On a fateful evening, while Henry and Lytuky were checking security devices at a secret warehouse, their enemy finally revealed himself. The general, whom they had thought was only a ghost from the past, appeared, cold and commanding. Flanked by dozens of henchmen ready to kill without hesitation. A fierce battle erupted. Henry and Lytuky fought side by side, using every skill and quick reflex they had to survive and evade. Every gunshot tightened their hearts, not just because of the danger, but because of the fear of losing each other. Lytuky was suddenly wounded. Henry rushed to catch her while still holding his gun in the other hand. Their sacrifice, courage, and love became the strongest shield between them and death. In the end, with timely backup from the police force Henry had secretly called, the general and his men were captured. The truth about the death of Lytuky's biological parents was exposed, and justice was served. After it all, in the brilliant dawnlight, Henry and Lytuky stood side by side, not as protector and protected anymore, but as two people who had weathered every storm together, writing their own story. Love amid danger was not only the flame that warmed their souls but also the power that gave them faith in tomorrow, a future no longer shadowed by fear, but full of hope and light.